Smith. I am the Vice President of the Beaches Watch. Our president is not here tonight, so I'm trying to fill her shoes, big shoes to fill. First, thank you for coming when we're not in our regular place. We know the membership comes down a bit because people forget and then they're at the library and then they get frustrated. But anyway, so thank you for coming. I want to recognize our elected officials who are with us tonight. Judge Gary Flower. Gary. Mayor of Neptune Beach, Corey Byland. And then from Jacksonville Beach, Sandy Golding, who's a city council person. Candace Kelly, city council from Atlantic Beach. And Greg Sutton, city council from Jack's Beach in the back.
And
So,
Mayor
I didn't sign in.
oh, yes. And the head of the Beaches Museum, who also happens to be the mayor of Jack's Beach, Chris Hoffman. So I did want to remind you that the 1st of October, which is actually today, we start our early bird special on membership. If you pay your membership between now and the end of December, you get all next year, but you get yourself into a door prize or some kind of prize for having anteed up early. So you know that the membership, I can't read that, so I think you can though. The membership is $15 for a family and $10, no, what is it? I can't
individual.
see. Individual is 15, 20 for the family. Okay, see, I told you I wasn't gonna be able to see that. And the other thing I wanted to mention just briefly is we do a Give Back Award. You know, we do our scholarship, and then we do our Give Back Award. And so if you know of a nonprofit that would benefit from our Give Back Award, please let us know, because we'd like to investigate it and see who we can give that award to this year. So I think that's it, Melissa. I can't see what's up there. So I'm just going to introduce Ellen Glasser, who's going to take it from here.
Thanks, Jackie.
You're welcome.
So we're going to move that thing over.
A little bit?
Yeah. Right, Sandy?
No.
All right, well then we're going to move the chairs in front. So we're not relying on PowerPoints today. Yay, for a change, right? Real people. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm Ellen Glasser, happy to be on the board for Beaches Watch, and I send regrets for Maria, our fearless leader, who couldn't be here tonight. So I have the distinct privilege of introducing our panel tonight, and then moderating the discussion for the next little bit less than an hour. So I'd like to ask our 3 beach city attorneys if you'd come on up and have a seat. In any particular order, doesn't matter. So I'm going to start north to south and talk about Jason Gabriel. He's in the middle here. He is the city attorney for Atlantic Beach. And like the other gentlemen up here, they all have amazing experience in other places before. We're really lucky to have that experience at the beach. But Jason's been the city attorney for Atlantic Beach for about 3 years, yeah? He is with the law firm of Burr and Foreman. Prior to that, he was the general counsel for the city of Jacksonville for a number of years. He brought a wealth of intergovernmental experience to Atlantic Beach. Then we have Paul Waters. Raise your hand. From Neptune Beach, who is with Bose Law. He's also had a pretty amazing resume. with time working for Postal Fleet, but before that, and I hope he'll talk about all the different assignments he had with the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation. I particularly want to hear about what you did with the Boxing Commission. So he did that for about 10 years and was at one point the Deputy Secretary for DBPR. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then to my far left, we have David, is it Mugut?
Mugut, yes.
Mugut, who is the city attorney for Jacksonville Beach. Has worked in a number of different locations, most recently before Jacksonville Beach with St. Johns County as the county attorney, as the assistant general counsel with COJ. I'm guessing, Jason, did you guys work together?
Yes.
Okay.
We actually went to law school together.
Oh, okay. He was also at one time the city attorney for Marathon, and then before all of that had been an assistant at St. Johns County as the county attorney there. So decades of experience. So we're going to start by letting them talk a little bit about what does a city attorney do, and to talk a little bit more in depth about their biography and how that has informed what they're doing with their respective cities. So I'll just, again, starting north to south. Jason, you want to go first?
Sure.
Do you have the mic?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Testing. I see, I hear.
Oh, it's green
I
now.
hear Chris.
It's probably
signing.
working.
All right.
It's green.
Try it now.
I heard you sigh.
Just now, yeah.
It's going. All right.
That's working. Yeah.
I think you have to, like, close proximity.
Okay, close proximity.
Well, I'm Jason Gabriel with the law firm of Burr Foreman, and I am city attorney for Atlantic Beach. I guess just a quick intro, and then what does the city attorney do? I've been practicing now for, I think, I tried to do the math earlier, I think it's 23 years, something like that. Graduated from the University of Florida, double gator, in the fall of 2001. My first job was at a law firm here in Jacksonville, a local boutique firm called Edwards Cohen, doing mostly real estate, but also some agency government work. For example, JTA, Jacksonville Transportation Authority, was a client at the time. Did a lot of transactional stuff and kind of moved more into agency government work, land use zoning, that sort of thing. Worked there for about 8.5 years, 9 years almost, and then in the year 2010, there was an opportunity in government, in-house at the city of Jacksonville to go into the land use department as an assistant general counsel. So I interviewed, was lucky enough to get hired, and so I went in-house. My juncture, age, all that at the time made sense to do that. I always thought I'd go back into the private sector, so go into the city of Jacksonville, work there for a few years in their land use department. And just when I thought I was going to leave government, go back to the private sector, it was about 2014. The general counsel at the time, a great attorney, who her name is Cindy Laquadera. I don't know if anyone, some of you may know her, wonderful attorney. She was actually leaving at the time, and there was an opportunity to possibly be considered for the general counsel's position. So lucky enough to be considered for it, was appointed, confirmed by the city council. So I became acting general counsel under the last year of Alvin Brown, previous mayor, in 2014. Fast forward 1 year, and the summer of 2015, Lenny Curry wins, and I thought once again I'd go back into the private sector, but there was an opportunity to stay under the next mayor, and so I did. And I thought I'd do that for a few years, and of course, you know how that works. And so I ended up staying through part of the second term, kind of halfway through the second term, and I left in 2021. So I was general counsel at the city of Jacksonville for about 7 years. Left in 2021 at the law firm of Burr Foreman, and I've been there ever since. I do primarily, land use and zoning is certainly one big part of what I do, but I do local government. I got board certified in local government law by the Florida Bar. That covers land use zoning. It also covers a bunch of other territories: sunshine, ethics, procurement, eminent domain, public finance to some degree, and other areas, and so sovereign immunity. So I have a local government practice. I do represent a lot of private interests throughout the state, in front of agencies. But I also have a subset of my practice that's government work. And there was an opportunity that came about, and actually I think it was one of, in the last few months of Mayor Glasser's term, there was an opportunity that came up. The long-term city attorney for Atlantic Beach was, she was going to move on to some other things. I think she was going to split some time with Tampa, and so she wanted to, basically hang it up at that point. Great attorney, Brandon Durden, and so there was an opportunity, and I put in, and I was very pleased that Atlantic Beach selected me to be the city attorney. Again, that was, I think, 3 years ago, and so Atlantic Beach is like my government sort of, love connection to government work. So that's I do some work for JTA and others on an ad hoc basis, but City of Atlantic Beach is my primary local government work in my practice doing other things. Sorry, that might have been long-winded.
No, it's cool.
So what does the city attorney do? That's a big esoteric question, perhaps. But I would say that primarily we're all, I think all of the various city beach charters have a provision for a city attorney that does the important work of defending the interests of the city. And sometimes that's in and of itself a philosophical question. What are the interests of the city? Well, I would submit that they are what the collegial body ultimately approves as policy matters. Sometimes those are unanimous votes, sometimes those are split votes. But whatever they are, those policies are enacted, and then it is our job as city attorneys to defend those policies if they're challenged. It is also our job to keep the commissions in line at meetings, to follow proper process, procedure, make sure all the due process elements are done correctly, and so forth. And then, of course, defending in court on a variety of issues. So, but anyway, with that, maybe turn it over to one of my colleagues here.
All right, we'll go on to Neptune Beach.
Hello everyone, my name is Paul Waters. I am a partner at the Bose Law Firm, and I am the city attorney for Neptune Beach. My firm has tentacles all over the state, so I also am the city attorney for, let me go down the list here. Neptune Beach, the city of Bunnell, Orange City, Daytona Beach Shores, South Daytona. I'm going to jump over to the West Coast, Fort Myers Beach, St. Pete Beach. God, I'm missing so many, but anyway, we represent clients all over the state. Every client has a unique set of circumstances and problems. Like, for instance, the city of Daytona Beach Shores is a city of high-rise condominiums. The city of Daytona Beach is basically a 20-mile seawall, and in places it's 20 feet high. So their big issue is, because they're all condos, are the threshold inspections, which are now mandatory for condominiums, and also repairing all of the damaged seawalls that have been destroyed by all the hurricanes. And that's no easy task, because every condo has a different seawall designed by a different engineer, built by a different contractor, so every single condominium has a different seawall. So we have to work with them to get their seawalls repaired. They have to work through state and federal DEP agency-like agencies. They have to work around sea turtle lighting ordinances, so they can only do it during certain times of the year. So that's just one city. Another example is the city of Bunnell, which is the second largest city in the state of Florida land-wise. Jacksonville is the first largest, obviously, but Bunnell, little old Bunnell, with 3,000, 4,000 people, is the second land-wise largest city in the state. And I think they have something like 40,000 acres of developable agricultural property. And it is starting to get developed. And I can tell you, development is not popular. People do not like development. And the city of Bunnell just approved a 6,100 house planned urban development, PUD. it was very controversial. Of course, the citizens, the mob showed up, the news showed up. It was not a very popular project, but it did go through. They're also doing 1,800 acre rezoning from agricultural to industrial, also very controversial. Our other cities, like for instance, Fort Myers Beach was completely leveled by a hurricane. So their legal issues are completely different than the city of Neptune Beach's legal issues. They're basically rebuilding the city from the ground up. And they have all sorts of issues with FEMA, with floodplain management, with federal compliance, with insurance. So every city has its own unique set of problems, and I'm happy to say that Neptune Beach is one of our best clients because they have some of the least amount of problems. Not that they don't have any problems, but their problems seem to be much smaller in scale, so they're a dream client to have. And I'm not just saying that because the mayor's here. It really is true. One of the big issues that we face all around the state with all of our clients, and I'm sure we'll all get into this, is a recently enacted Senate Bill 180, which prohibits more restrictive, burdensome requirements on development. It's not a very popular bill, and it's causing a lot of problems in the state. Another problem that we're facing is First Amendment auditors. Seems to be a big issue, especially in Volusia County, our Volusia County clients. I'm not sure if you guys have dealt with a lot of First Amendment auditors, but we are really getting hammered hard in Central Florida. And those are the guys that go in City Hall with cell phones, and they go to the front desk person, and they're filming the front desk person, and they ask for public records, and they say, I'm a reporter. And of course, the person at the front desk says, you can't film me. But unfortunately, they can. And so what always ends up happening is the person at the front desk ends up calling the police. Police come. It never turns out well when the police shows up. So it's usually someone gets arrested and they sue the city. And the way those lawsuits work is they get referred to insurance companies. Insurance companies always settle those cases. So the First Amendment auditors probably get 30 or 40 grand almost every single case. Plus they get the money they generate from their websites, YouTube hits, they sell merchandise. So we're getting hit really hard by First Amendment auditors. I mentioned Senate Bill 180. Something that's recently you might have heard of is the open carry. That seems to be causing a lot of problems around the state. Basically, it's now legal to carry openly, carry a long gun openly. There's a conflict because there's a state statute that says you can't carry concealed guns, concealed weapons in churches, schools, bars, commission rooms, but that statute doesn't apply to rifles. So you can bring rifles into a commission room, right? As the law is written now, you can bring a rifle into a commission room.
Probably don't need that on video.
Well, I mean, it's already out there, and everybody knows about it. It's very controversial. It's going to be fixed, hopefully, by the legislature. They're going to fix that loophole. But you know, good luck to someone who wants to test that, and it's going to be tested by the First Amendment auditors. They're the ones that are going to come into the commission room with a rifle, and let's see how that turns out for them. I don't think it's going to turn out well if they try to do that. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit about what our firm does, and I think you had some questions about my background. Do you want me to go through my background?
Well, I do want to hear about the boxing commission.
The boxing commission. All right. When I got out of law school, I started. I've been practicing for 24 years, So my first job was as a corporate attorney for a real estate developer that built low-income housing with utilizing tax credits all over the country. So the real estate market crashed in 2008. I had a little baby, a brand new wife, a brand new little baby at home. Had to take a job, so I took a job as a prosecuting attorney in Tallahassee, and the pay was $35,000. That's a stinger. That's not a lot of money. So I started as a prosecuting attorney. I soon moved up to chief attorney, where I was in charge of 16 attorneys. Then I was moved up to deputy general counsel, where I was in charge of 70 attorneys. And then I was moved to division director, which was I was in charge of the Florida Boxing Commission. So DBPR regulates about 20 different professionals, contractors, real estate sales brokers and salespersons, architects, engineers. Basically, if you're not a doctor or a lawyer and you have a professional license, DBPR regulates it. And every one of those professions has a board, and every one of those boards is just like a city commission. So they all have to have attorneys and prosecuting attorneys. So I was in charge of the legal representation for all of those boards, and then I was asked to be division director of the Florida Boxing Commission. And the Florida Boxing Commission is in charge of all the professional boxing and MMA events in the state of Florida. So every televised professional fight in the state of Florida, for 3 years, I was the guy that ran all the fights. I was in charge of all the fights. And they always hire either lawyers or accountants to be the director of the Boxing Commission. And we surround ourselves with subject matter experts, because the Boxing Commission is a board, just like the City Commission is a board, and it has business, and we make laws, we make administrative rules. But one of the fun things that we did is we also ran the fight. We also had professional fights. So on any given Friday, I could be in Miami. On the you offer the UFC, you offer of MMA and Dana White. So on any given Friday, I would be in Miami at a UFC, running a UFC fight, with a televised UFC fight. And somehow, some way, I was the guy that was in charge of the whole thing. We assigned all the officials. The officials were referees, judges, ringside physicians. We are in charge of making sure that the fighters were evenly matched. You don't want someone that weighs 150 pounds fighting someone that weighs 250 pounds. And you don't want someone that's had 2 professional fights fighting someone that's had 100 professional fights. Or no one's had 100 professional fights, 30 professional fights. So they have to be evenly matched. We also make sure that they're medically cleared, that they're able to fight, they don't have HIV or hepatitis, that their eyesight is good. They have to have sports physicals, they have to weigh in, there's contracts, they have matchmakers. We do weigh-ins, those are usually televised, and the night of the event we actually are in charge of everything from the ring girls to the ticket counters, to everything you can imagine that goes into a boxing event. We did a lot of events on sovereign land, which is kind of a unique circumstance. I mean, that's sovereign land. The Seminole tribe, our laws don't apply on their land, but they don't have the expertise to run a professional televised boxing event. So who would they call? They would call us to come in and run it for them. So that's
Great preparation for working in local government.
yeah.
So let's move it on to
Sorry,
David.
yeah,
And we're going to come back to SB 180
So
a little bit later,
Okay.
after we sort of move past the introduction. So you're up, David.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is David Mugut, and I am the city attorney for Jacksonville Beach. I'm going to start off real quick on a tangent before I forget. Some of the stuff I've done in the last year and a half since I've been here was help the police department prevent kind kind of beach takeovers, if you will. And one of the things they were promoting was boxing. And fortunately, we prevented that from happening. But in the future, if we ever fail and it starts happening, I'm going to give Paul a call. Get down there and make sure we're doing this right. No, but seriously, I've been practicing law. It sounds like we've all been practicing law about the same amount of time, about 2.5 decades. And I've done local government law my entire career, slightly different from each of my colleagues' current roles. I've always been in-house. You know, they work for a law firm, right, at least presently, that represents multiple cities or at least one city. And let me briefly talk about the difference and why I think there's a difference, because it concerns, I think, your tax dollars and the best use of your tax dollars. And as I think it might have been Jason alluded to, in most city charters, there's provision for legal services. So then it's up to the city council to determine how are we going to provide the legal services our city needs and is required. And generally, the smaller cities around the state, there's maybe not enough legal work to justify a full-time employee. Of course, these guys would say that that's not true. I'm working 80 hours a week, just like the city. But so generally, smaller cities around the state of Florida will hire a law firm. I think your towns are 13,000 and 7,000 around there. Well, Jacksonville Beach is about 24,000, and Jacksonville Beach made the decision in 2019, I want to say, that it would be better both fiscally and for operations, because it was a bigger city comparatively, to bring the position in-house. Prior to 2019, Jacksonville Beach also hired a law firm to do its legal work. But now, since 2019, there's been a city attorney's office, which has consisted of a single city attorney. I joined on early last year, early 2024 in that role, and a paralegal. And then we make sure that the budget is smart and we're spending taxpayers' money smart. So because I am full-time and I'm the only attorney, and similar to what they do, I represent just about every city department. So every day is a little bit different for me. I could be helping the police department on one day, similar to what I just started my conversation with. The next day I could be helping our public works department. Or on the same day, I then work with our planning and development department. Jacksonville Beach owns Beach's energy services, so I do legal work on the electricity and the water and sewer for Beach's energy services as well. So it's a little bit of everything on the civil side, which I like to say. With a few exceptions. We don't do family law. We don't get involved with divorces or anything. But cities encounter just about every type of civil law. Now, of course, our police department will arrest people, but then those arrests, the prosecution of those arrests are handled by the state attorney, so we don't get involved with the criminal matters. But then a little bit about me. I went to undergraduate at University of Miami. I bring that up because we're good in football this year for the first time in many, many years, so I wanted to, at least until the next losing streak, I wanted to bring that up. And then I went to University of Florida for law school. Was fortunate to get a job right out of law school with the city of Fort Myers and spent almost a decade down there. Actually came up here for a conference, a police law conference at the Casa Monica in St. Augustine, and the hotel was fully sold out, so I had to stay on Volano Beach. And one day I just turned north on A1A and drove all the way to what I thought it ended, which was at Atlantic. So I got to see Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach. I apologize, Atlantic Beach. I kind of pulled a U-turn right as your city limits were starting. But I'm like, this is a nice area. I'm going to look into it more. And sure enough, less than 10 months after I was at that conference, I accepted a job with St. Johns County. So I moved up to the general area in 2011. I did get greedy and left for 4 years to live in the Florida Keys about 10 years ago, but I came back because the Keys were a great place to vacation, but this is the best place to live. So I've enjoyed working for local government for next month will be 23 and a half years I've been doing this. And I know we probably all got a little long-winded, so let me stop there so we can get into more of the topics that we've been asked to talk about.
So why don't you hang on to the microphone, and I want to thank you for giving that sort of description of how different cities might have a different model for their legal services. So you are in-house counsel, paid by Jacksonville Beach, Jason is also in-house counsel for Atlantic Beach, but works for a law firm and does other things. So it's basically, you know, it's not expected to be full-time, but it is, you're not working for any other cities, are you? Well, no? Well,
So I'm the city attorney by contract.
Right.
Through the firm.
Right.
Yeah, so I have done work for other cities on one-offs, but not as full-time city attorney.
right, thank you for clarifying that. And then Paul, you're basically, your firm represents many of the small cities, as David explained, right?
That's correct, all over the state of Florida, yes.
Okay, so, and if you have questions about that later, we'll get to it, but that really answered one of our primary questions. So let's drill down to what are the pressing legal issues that you're dealing with, like right now? What's in your workload right now for your city?
Well, every city has, like I said, a different, unique set of circumstances. And like my colleague said, we practice just about every area of the law you can imagine. One minute we're doing collective bargaining with police unions. The next minute we're doing procurement for contracts. The next minute we might have an employee, we're advising the HR director on how to discipline an employee. Next minute we are drafting contracts. We might be handling permitting issues. We might be working with developers, working on development agreements. And each of our cities has a code enforcement, either a special magistrate or a code enforcement board, a planning and zoning board, and a city commission or city council. And there could also be other boards that the cities have. So exactly what do we do? It depends on the day.
Well, water is one issue right now between the two cities, Atlantic Beach and Neptune Beach. How have you worked on that? The sharing of water for fire services at is it 500 Atlantic?
It's 500 Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, did you guys work together on that?
Not yet.
Not yet. Not
Oh.
yet. That's on the horizon.
And that's just water suppression.
Right, water suppression.
It's very.
So is there a legal aspect of that when the two cities work together? So it's not, it hasn't come to you guys yet?
And no, we haven't actually, we will. in the
Sorry to
future.
jump the gun on
No,
it.
that's all
We're
right.
reading
but
about it in the paper.
It's interesting you brought it up because when two cities work together, we do it through something called an interlocal agreement. And that's when two cities basically contract with each other to help each other out. And that's a very common thing.
Okay.
So hopefully, in the near future, we will be working.
Well, and I'm sure you're working on the budgets, or you've just finished the budget. So if there are other pressing issues, maybe Jason can talk about what's going on in AB now.
I would start with, you asked kind of just sort of the general spectrum, and I would actually ditto everything Paul said. I think that was a great segue into, it could be HR one day, it could be, a constitutional question the next day, it could be an opinion on a matter, a code enforcement issue. Again, I would just ditto everything Paul said. The budget, it just depends on if there's a legal issue. I think what's interesting about city attorneys is, we're the legal, counsel to the elected officials. We pride ourselves on trying not to delve into policy. Now, certainly, and we're always operating right at the cross-section of policy and law. But oftentimes what it is you have the elected officials, and in our cases, the collegial bodies, the commissions, the councils, who on any given issue are going to, consider it, toggle over it, debate it. I think more times than not, majority of times it's a unanimous decision, but sometimes, depending on the issue, there may be, a split vote. In my case, we have 5 commissioners. It could be a 3-2 vote or something like that. So, the issues that we deal with, again, they run the gamut of all these various subject matters. I think, what people may be interested in is what are the high-profile policy issues that are happening, and we're certainly called to research and provide opinions that help model, what the policy decision is that, the commission's going to undertake or the council's going to undertake. But it's not necessarily, the commission may very well take up an issue and take a position on it that I personally don't agree with, but that's not my call. I am there to support their decision. It's not, they're the elected ones, not me. I would never run for office. God bless the people that do. It's just a totally different, dynamic. So we're there to support legally what they're doing, regardless of our personal or political affiliation, and defend it, regardless, and to get them in the best posture to do it. We're there to call balls and strikes, tell them, no, you can't do this, yes, you can do that. And then I think what people want to see from their lawyers too is problem solving. Like, okay, well, get me from point A to point B. I know you said we can't do it that way, but is there another way? And our job is to find a legal way to do it, I would say.
David, anything pressing in Jack's Beach?
So, one thing that's been pressing for many years now is vacation rentals. And I know a lot of you have probably read about it. In 2011, the Florida legislature passed a law that really restricted local government's abilities to regulate vacation rentals. Two key things were off the table as of 2011. You couldn't, if you didn't already have an ordinance that addressed frequency and duration, you couldn't touch those anymore. So you got these vacation rentals in residential neighborhoods, and because of the state preemption, we're very limited in what we can do to combat them. We do safety checks on them, fire marshal, stuff like that. And every year it seems like, some of the lobbyists, so let me pause here. The views, opinions I am saying right now may not necessarily reflect the views, opinions of the city of Jacksonville Beach, their officers, etc. Now that I've said that. So you get a lot of vacation rental lobbyists coming in every year. There seems like a new vacation rental bill that comes up in the legislature where they try to make it more advantageous for the owners and less advantageous or detrimental to the local residents. So that's a recurrent issue. But even the cities that do have an ordinance from before 2011, they're worried that if they change their ordinance, they lose their grandfathering status. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation for local governments. Other than that, I can't think of a specific example on this concept, but the concept of unfunded mandates. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But each year the state tells us more and more of what we have to do, a lot of times without helping us out with the funding necessary to accomplish those tasks. Similar but distinct is, and I kind of already alluded to it in vacation rentals, is preemption. Florida since 1968 has had what's called home rule power, which means our local governments can act in the best interest of their citizens absent a state law prohibiting it. It's kind of a very basic, bare-bones summary of that concept. Each year, it seems the Florida legislature passes more and more laws that preempt local government's abilities to do what they think is right for their local citizens, their local neighborhoods, etc. Let me give you two examples off the top of my head, neither of which are from this area of the state, but when I lived in the Keys, the city of Key West passed a law prohibiting large cruise ships from coming in. They had cruises coming in before that, and they passed a second law. When I say law, I mean ordinance, prohibiting the sale of any sunscreen that was not coral reef safe. There is coral reefs off the Florida Keys. Within a year or two, the Florida legislature passed laws preempting both of those topics to the state, and as a result, Key West now has big cruise ships again, and any sort of sunscreen can be sold in town. That was two ideas that Key West thought, this is what's ideal for our neighborhood, and the state of Florida said, no, it's not. So preemption's a big problem, and it affects, hopefully my example pointed this out, different communities get affected in different ways. Preemption is just kind of like a universal evil. Again, my views don't necessarily represent the views of others. The Live Local Act, that's evolving, and we're trying to, at its core, it has a laudable goal of affordable housing, but some of the...
Can I pause you for a second? Can you just give us the, because that's a question in and of itself, this Live Local Act. Can you set that up before you start talking about it?
It's a big one.
Sounds like Paul wants to take this one.
I don't know.
All right, so
How many hours do we have?
it's a statute that is trying to promote the ability for affordable housing to be built in a way that, a lot of developers need to make a profit, obviously. And it tries to help clear some hurdles, if you will, I think is the intent, for affordable housing to more easily be built. But what it does is it kind of restricts local government zoning, if you will. You know, if an area is, I think, commercial, zoned commercially, industrial, or what's called mixed-use residential, cities no longer have the ability to prevent certain types of affordable housing from being built in those areas. Now, I'm oversimplifying it, but I think that's, at the bare bones, that's what it is. And each year, we're in our third year now, the Florida legislature has expanded upon that statute. You know, for example, in the most recent bill that passed this year, two things come to mind off the top of my head. They're trying to take away local governments' rights to, in some instances, not globally, don't misquote me on this, but our ability to regulate height limitations is potentially at risk. And then, you know, some local governments started doing that when the first bill passed in 2023. So this year the legislature put in a clause saying height restrictions for purposes of live local are what they were in 2023. So any local government who's tried to do something to prevent unintended consequences in the last 2 years is not preempted from doing that. One other issue I've seen is now, if a local government, I guess, tries to decline a live local application, I'm probably misstating that, and litigation comes out, the local government would be liable, if it loses in litigation, to pay the other side's attorney's fees up to $250,000, which is, you know, detrimental to the local government. So, do you guys think that I missed any key points?
Yeah, I really want to make sure we have time to get some questions, but if the others have something they want to add to that,
I'll just say,
I think most people remain confused 3 years later about what it's going to mean for, like, the beaches.
yeah, good segue, because I think David laid it out, you know, pretty much in its form. But I think the good news is, because now this certainly would apply to, I think, Atlantic Beach and Neptune Beach. Maybe Jack's Beach might be a little different. I think geographically and physically, I don't think there's going to be too much room for, practically speaking, for the live local type product to be built. If you know what I mean. We're built out. There's only, you know, so much sand, you know, on the seashore. So I think practically speaking, it may not be as terrible, at least for the beaches community. Now, Jack's Beach has got a little more land and capacity, perhaps, but I think there's that. And then also, to piggyback on what David was saying, there's certain parameters that have to be met to even qualify for a live local type product. There's a whole formula, AMI. You get into some real specifics. So again, judging by the ad valorem taxation of our beaches as well, I don't think, I think there's a lot of parameters that will eke out or edge out a general live local type product. So,
Paul,
whatever
what
that's
do you
worth.
think, Paul, on this? And then I've got another couple of questions, but I want to get to the crowd.
The Live Local Act really is not going to impact Neptune Beach that much, because we are really built out. There's not a lot of developable land that we have to worry about. I think there is one location, it's a shopping plaza, but there are no plans for any type of, no developers come to us with any plans for that. So it's not really affecting Neptune Beach. It's affecting some of our other clients, but we're not going to see an impact in Atlantic or Neptune Beach. I think Jacksonville Beach is probably going to get hit hardest by it. And the Live Local Act, it morphs every legislature. It's going to change a little bit more. And I think, like my colleague said, every year Home Rule Authority is getting eroded a little bit more and a little bit. There's always a tug of war between Tallahassee and the local cities. And Tallahassee seems to have been winning the past couple of years.
Thank you. I did want to just briefly touch on the aftermath of the Form 1 issue. How many years has it been? A couple of years since the state legislature changed their requirements for elected officials in terms of what they had to disclose, and a lot of people resigned their commissions. They thought it was overreach, and then a hold was placed on that. So can any one of you sort of tell us where we are on that? And
So a couple of years ago, all elected officials and appointed officials have to file what is called a Form 1, and it's a financial disclosure form. And it's basically just says what your assets and your liabilities are. It's a really basic form. You file it with the Florida Commission on Ethics, and it's really meant to show that you have no conflicts of interest. Well, a couple of years ago, the legislature came up with what's called a Form 6. And all elected officials at that time now had to file a Form 6, which was much more intrusive. Anything over $1,000 had to be disclosed on your Form 6. That means your wife's wedding ring, your golf clubs, your refrigerator, your cars, anything in your house. And it was so intrusive that a lot of elected officials, number one, they didn't want to list everything they owned on the form. Number two, some of them had to hire actual accountants to fill them out. They were so complicated. It was so controversial that we lost quite a few commission members actually resigned because it was so intrusive. And we actually lost quorums on a lot of our commissions weren't able to operate because they lost so many members. There was a lawsuit filed, I believe it was in Miami, to enjoin it and to say it was unconstitutional. Currently, there is an injunction in place. So currently the Form 6, no one has to file that. My understanding is something might have happened a day or two ago, but as of right now, you elected officials still only have to file the Form 1. That may change next July, we don't know. We have to wait and see what the courts do, but for right now, it's just Form 1.
Thanks a lot. So I'd like to open it up for some questions, if that's okay, and try to keep it to a question, because I'd like to make sure we conclude at 8 o'clock. Jackie, do you want to take the microphone back there, or not? Or do we have another microphone?
I just want to ask, because they talked about Atlantic Beach and Neptune Beach and the Live Local Act and stuff, and the impact that it probably would not have any impact. But David, I don't think you really got a chance to talk about, do we think it's going to have an impact in Jax Beach, whether it's from the height limit or any other?
So I think it's, now my colleagues who work in planning and development and administration have looked at that aspect of it more than I have. But my understanding is there's still a low probability of an effect on Jacksonville Beach between, our height limitations go back to a charter amendment, I believe in 2004. So those were in place well before Live Local came out. I feel we're on fairly solid ground with that. And then and I may be misstating this, but this is my understanding as a non-financial person, I just think the price of the dirt leads to potentially less profit for the developers. To acquire the real estate is going to cost a lot more in a coastal town, than in, I'll just throw a city name out there, than Lakeland or Winter Haven. So I think there might be less profit. And again, it's a little bit of speculation on my part, but I have heard that. I may have misunderstood it, but I think that's also a factor that would protect the beaches communities more so because of our geographic location. So we do have a little bit more, my understanding, undeveloped property than my two neighbors to the north, but I still think Jax Beach is not in that detrimental of a position. And let me just add one more thing, and I know you want to get to questions just because Paul alluded to it. On the Form 6, Form 1 thing, 2 days ago there was a court order that came out just saying that the judge wants no more filings in that case because she anticipates entering a ruling in the near future. Doesn't say what near future is, but the injunction's been in place for about 16 months now, and it sounds like we might finally hear something more in the coming months. So that was what you were alluding to, right, with 2 days ago.
Yes.
So that's what may be coming in the near future.
It's too bad that so many people resigned in the interim. So I think, Mitch, because you're so close to the thing, you don't need a microphone.
I'm loud about there.
No, I don't think you need the mic. So, all right, guys, we're going to keep these questions moving along, please. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question that you guys, it's not your fault, you weren't involved. The Jacksonville attorneys were all involved, and the beach's attorneys were involved. But the topic tonight is how do you keep the cities out of basically trouble and out of things. Here's my question to you. Many of residents do not know that every month when we pay our water bill, we pay a waste management fee on our water bill. Okay? You right? Okay. We pay a percentage of the water we use. Now, what happened about 8-10 years ago, the school board came across and said, we're not paying that anymore because we don't pay taxes and that's a tax. Nobody challenged them. So my question, are you prepared if a group of citizens at the beach get together, file a class action suit saying we want a refund of all of our money that we've paid over the last 10 years because no one ever passed a tax? It's still a fee. So how do you feel about protecting that?
I think anybody can sue anybody for any reason, and if anybody sues one of our cities, we are all in. So we will defend
I appreciate that question, but let me just say this: from 1 to 10, what kind of liability to the city have?
I'd say 0.5.
Okay. I'd rather have that answer than something, you know.
I mean, do you guys agree with that? I mean,
I just want some of my money back.
Undersold that. I mean, maybe you guys think.
So anybody, questions? Questions, anybody? Okay. Can you just walk up here so that it can be overheard on this?
Move so somebody else can sit here.
Yeah, we can walk
Okay, well,
around.
we can do this, okay, yes, we can do this, we can do this.
Hi, thanks, Kelly, living in Atlantic Beach. Some of my constituents have asked me to ask Jason particularly about the alliance between the comp plan and proposed ordinances, and how do we go about making sure that they are in alignment?
Yeah, that's a good question, because any LDRs, land development regulations, or ordinance code usually, or zoning codes, whenever they're prepared, whether we're deleting something, adding something, modifying rules, creating new rules, or what have you, they have to be done so in compliance and in consistency with the overriding comprehensive plan. So, put another way, the comprehensive plan is sort of like the general, strong constitution of the development of a particular community. In this case, City of Atlantic Beach. We have a comprehensive plan. Statutorily, every city and county is required to have one. And then any rules, ordinances, code provisions, or what have you that we prepare have to be done, which usually have more detail and more minutia, that has to be done in compliance with the comp plan. So to answer the question, our code changes that we undertake have to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan.
I assume that's true across the board.
Across the-
Other questions? Yes. I guess I'm doing it this way.
First, thank you guys for coming. You may or may not have an answer to this question, but every so often I'll see some headline come across talking about how the legislature is looking at, eliminating property taxes, and I'm just wondering what you guys have heard through the grapevine about that, and whether or not these people actually understand that they will be defunding every municipality in Florida.
Take that. I'll take a stab at that. There's always rumors. There's been rumors of that for a couple of years. A lot of our cities, that's how they obviously, the majority of all of their revenue comes from ad valorem taxes. So if the legislature takes that away, they also take away the city's revenue. So that has to be replaced. So how will that be replaced? So the legislature will have to put something else, another tax in place. So if it goes away, I would imagine something else will be right behind it to replace it.
And to piggyback on that, so practically speaking, it's a bit of a long shot, but if it's going to be done, like Paul said, there'd have to be a replaceable revenue. And more to the point, it's in the Constitution. So ad valorem taxes and that method of revenue for localities, for counties, cities, it's in the Constitution. So if that's going to happen, they're going to have to amend the Constitution, which is a tall order.
It's very hard to do.
Recently, some committees have been set up of certain state legislators, and they've started to meet. And to their credit, even though my personal opinion is it's a horrible idea, again, my personal views, not necessarily others. To their credit, though, they are listening to all the stakeholders in their initial meetings. At their meeting last week or the week before, they had I believe the Florida League of Cities and also maybe the Florida Association of Counties had representatives show up at those meetings of this committee of state legislators looking at the property tax issue to really educate them in detail on what these funds are used for and what some of the consequences would be if they're taken away without in-kind replacement. So it really has accelerated in the last month or two. It seems like the governor has become a champion of this idea in the last 6 months, and they're starting to take steps, but the committees are, to their credit, being deliberate and having a lot of meetings to learn all the facts and consequences and relevant points.
Thank you. Anybody else? I will ask one question, and it was a hot issue a couple of years ago when they were talking about closing our schools at the beaches, that there was an interlocal agreement between the beaches and the city of Jacksonville and the school board that really had not been enforced. Have the parties convened to get that back on track yet?
So that happened in April of 2024. I want to say maybe even March. I know because it was my first week on the job, and I'm like, what am I being thrown into? It showed me, though, how much the constituents care, at least in Jacksonville Beach. And I know I met with Jason, and you weren't on board yet, but we met with your predecessor, and you can tell all three communities were very involved about it. But we discovered language in an interlocal from many years ago. The last I heard, in fact, I heard Mayor Hoffman reference it. I think I just overheard you say it to someone else about 2 weeks ago. I think we're trying to set up a meeting, or a meeting should be set up in the very near future as required under that interlocal agreement, and hopefully that'll be a benefit to the neighborhood schools to have the local community speaking with our school board rep. And I think, it also affects actually the town, I don't know if it's a town or what, Baldwin on the west side of Jacksonville is also involved in that. I don't know if you guys have any other wisdom on that.
Yeah, we're in the same process too. It's coordinating meetings.
Sounds like Mayor Byland's got an update on that. But
Oh.
Yeah. So there's going to be a school board meeting in compliance with that interlocal agreement on October 23rd at Fletcher High School at 5 o'clock. So.
all right. Anybody else? Last question? Jackie, do you have anything you want to say at the end? Well, I hope we weren't too aggressive with you. It was
good.
I thought you hit a lot of topics, and I thought it was very informative, and I'm really happy that our community gets to meet you in this way and gets to watch the video again and again. It was so interesting. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.